This message is sponsored by Greenlight. With school out, summer is the perfect time to teach our kids real-world money skills they'll use forever. Greenlight is a debit card and the #1 family finance and safety app used by millions of families, helping kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. Parents can send their kids money and track their spending and saving, while kids build money confidence and skills in fun ways. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/Wondery. That's greenlight.com/Wondery.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 430 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing great.
Awesome.
Ready to get into this episode because it's a very interesting one. But first, let's do our Patreon shout-outs. We had Patty Musari.
Hey, Patty.
Melanie Madamba.
Hey, Melanie.
Peter Ozuna.
Hey, thanks, Peter.
Nikki and Xavier Magnata.
Well, that's awesome, Nikki and Xavier.
Good old Sarah jumped out at our highest level.
Love me some Sarah.
Tracy Dale.
Hey, Tracy.
And last but not least, Don Reed.
There's Don.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Marie Helen Van Court.
Well, thanks, Marie Helen.
Rancourt.
Well, thanks, Marie Helen.
Yeah, appreciate the new support, the continued support. We also have a brand new episode out on True Crime All the Time Unsolved, where we're talking about 16-year-old David Brom, who in 1988 murdered his parents and younger siblings with an axe. Gibbs, it's a nightmarish case.
It is.
And then it really comes down to, multiple phases of a trial, right? First degree, second degree, but also, his legal mental health. So there's a lot to it.
And I think some people might disagree with the outcome.
Yeah, I think people may be conflicted. You never know. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am.
We also have an interesting one here. We're talking about Ashley Ouellette and Tony Torres. Ashley Ouellette was murdered in February 1999 in Scarborough, Maine, after leaving a sleepover at a friend's house to go see a boy she had previously dated. And then a month later, a young man named Tony Torres told his parents he knew who killed Ashley. Tony went missing in May 1999 and has never been found. So this is kind of like a mystery wrapped up in an enigma. It's there's multiple things going on here.
It's like a turducken.
Mm-hmm. Or a turducken.
Yes.
Ashley Ouellette was a normal 15-year-old girl from Saco, Maine. At the time of her death, she was a sophomore at Thornton Academy in Saco. Ashley was described as a bright, outgoing person who made friends easily. She was a good student in elementary school, but she struggled in middle school. Her grades started to fall. And by 8th grade, Ashley was smoking, drinking, and staying out late. Some nights, she didn't come home at all. By the age of 13, Ashley had run away from home several times. Her parents' efforts to control her behavior and reason with her resulted in arguments.
Well, that's going to cause some issues at home.
Yeah, no doubt about it. A 13-year-old, right, should not be staying out all night. That's something that parents are going to try to put a stop to and should. That's their job. But we all know what teenagers are like. They are sometimes very hard, not to control. That's not the right word, but to reason with, to really get to, like, right, what you're trying to say and why it doesn't always compute with them.
They can be really stubborn.
Ashley's parents enrolled her in a week-long inpatient counseling program, and she enrolled in the alternative education program at Thornton Academy. This seemed to help Ashley turn things around. Her grades were improving, and she was trying to quit smoking. She was developing better friendships and acting more maturely, according to her parents.
Man, what a relief for parents that, go through a kid that's struggling like that.
Yeah, 13, 14, 15, teenagers, right? They get rebellious. They want to try new things, do things that you don't want them to do. But what I thought was really amazing here is that whatever program they put her in, it did seem to work. And she was starting to turn her life around. Ashley enjoyed the independent study and one-on-one instruction in the alternative education program. Program director Leon Hadieris told the Portland Press-Herald, students are in this program for a variety of reasons, but for the most part, they haven't had a whole lot of success in mainstream classes. Here, Ouellette worked all the time. She was a very capable girl. She dove into anything she attempted. He was impressed by Ashley's compassion. She was always quick to help others. Once, when a couple of girls came to a school dance after an athletic event and were worried about their appearance, Ashley took them aside and shared her makeup and jewelry with them. So again, it sounds like she went through, a stage, and a lot of kids do. But by this point, as we're talking about her now, she seems to be doing very well.
When we talk about her now, I just feel like you can tell there's been a turnaround.
Yeah, I think a pretty major one. And like you said, her parents must have been just relieved and so happy about it. Ashley's close friend, Kimberly Vaughn, said she was mature and responsible for her age. Kimberly had a baby about 3 weeks before Ashley died. Ashley was one of her birth coaches. She stayed with Kimberly throughout labor and delivery and helped her friend at home after she left the hospital.
Something that's never been included with my name?
Birth coach?
Well, that too.
Oh.
Yep. Mature and responsible in the same
sentence?
Yeah.
Which is why you would not be anyone's first pick to be a birth coach.
I think I could be good. Be like, come on, get that out of there.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works. Oh. It's not like cheering a hitter on at a ball game.
You call that pushing?
It's definitely not putting people down as they're trying to deliver a baby. Kimberly's mother, Dolores Hans, said Ashley liked to hang out with older kids, but would call Kimberly or Dolores to pick her up if she didn't like the crowd she was with. In the months before her death, Ashley's behavior had improved so much that her mother allowed her to go to a sleepover at a friend's house on February 9th, 1999, a Tuesday night. Ashley was spending the night with her friend Aaliyah Page, who lived less than a mile from Ashley. She said she would go to school from Aaliyah's house the following morning. Now, I don't know about you, Gibbs, but, I had a lot of sleepovers when I was a young kid. I would invite, kids to my house. I would stay over at their house. But I don't ever remember being able to do it like on a weeknight, a school night, and going to school from their house. I don't think I was ever allowed to do that.
I did that a few times, but not very often.
Ashley's mother, Lise Ouellette, told the Press-Herald, I almost said no, because the rule is you don't go out on a school night. But she said, Mom, I've been doing so well. So I said, okay. When we got there, the two cars in the driveway were the cars that I knew to be Aaliyah's parents, so I thought the parents were home. Just after 10 p.m., Ashley called her mother to say goodnight. At 3:57 a.m. on February 10th, Ashley's body was found lying in the middle of Pine Point Road in Scarborough by passing motorists. A local man named Michael Lopes and his mother found her. Lopes' mom picked him up from work in the early morning hours because he was having car trouble. There were no other cars around at the time. His mom swerved to avoid what she thought was an animal. Lopes quickly realized it was a body. His mom called the police and turned the car around, parking in the middle of the road so the headlights would illuminate the body. Lopes ran to the body and knelt beside the victim. He recounted to the Press-Herald, my initial thought was somebody had been hit by a car, but she was just placed so perfectly. Her hands were right by her side, legs straight, toes pointing down. I didn't even know if it was male or female. I'll never forget that image, grabbing her shoulder and slowly turning her over. The body could have no face, for all I knew. The girl had no pulse and her skin was blue, but her body was still warm. He saw no bruises or scrapes, just a small amount of dried blood around her nose and mouth. Lopes performed CPR until the police arrived and told him there was nothing he could have done to revive her. Okay, we got to talk about, this guy and his mom driving at a very early, time of the morning.
Right.
Just before 4:00. There's not going to be a lot of people out probably on the road they're on. Pretty natural to see something in the road and at first think it's probably a dead animal or something like that. But he quickly can tell it's a body. And I'm kind of amazed at what this guy does. I mean, he jumps out, he checks on, Ashley. He doesn't know who she is, but he tries to give her CPR.
To me, it sounds like a moment from a horror film, when you come up on that body in the middle of the road and laying there perfectly, and you're like, wait, what's going on here? But like you said, he was good about getting out of the car, checking on it.
And trying. At least trying.
Making an effort.
I mean, nothing he could have done, right, as they told him would have saved her life, but I don't know that everybody would do that. I don't know how I'd react in that situation. Some people would probably just be paralyzed with fear or trauma with what they were seeing. But he wasn't. He jumped right in there. As described by Michael Lopes, Ashley was found face down on the road, lined up on the center lines. Her hands were by her side, legs out straight. Her hair was combed and her clothes were buttoned. She was wearing 2 lightweight shirts, black leggings, and platform shoes, but no winter coat. And I think just that scene, right, the way it's described, it naturally seems so very odd.
Kind of creepy.
Yeah, I mean, if a body is struck by a passing car, what are the chances that it's going to end up directly on the center line, lined up? That doesn't seem like an accident. That seems like she was placed there by someone deliberately, on that center line.
Yeah. And I'm thinking this is just a little bit less than 6 hours after she said, "Good night, Mom."
It took hours for state police and local detectives to identify Ashley because she didn't have her ID on her. Robert and Lise Ouellette did not know Ashley was missing. They found out after their friend saw a noontime newscast that included a description of the body. They thought Ashley had been at school the whole time. The Maine State Police declared Ashley's death a homicide, but withheld many of the details, including her autopsy results. Not surprising, right? We find that out in a lot of cases. Authorities will give out some details, but they're going to hold back quite a few.
They're going to need some of those details later if they find a suspect in this case.
Yeah, some of those details could help corroborate whether or not, someone is telling the truth, especially if they're confessing. Authorities focused on creating a timeline of Ashley's last movements. Police learned that Aaliyah Page's parents were not home on the night of February 9th after Ashley's 10 p.m. phone call. The girls were visited by a few boys from school. Lise was told that one of the boys who came over was Jay Carney. Carney would become a central figure of a different investigation. Another person who attended the party at the Page household was 16-year-old Daniel Sanborn, a classmate of Ashley's. According to Lise Ouellette, eventually the girls decided to go to the home of Earl and Muriel Sanborn, Daniel's parents. The other residents of the Sanborn home were their 18-year-old son, Stephen, their son, Ricky, and their friend, Christopher Coate. Ashley and Stephen briefly dated 2 years earlier. Lise told Crime Watch Daily, "I think she wanted to be with Stephen. I think she had a crush on him, but I don't think she was ever involved with him, and that's the thing. She wanted to see Stephen that night," from what the girls said. One friend said that Ashley remained at the Sanborn house after the other girls went home. And you and I have talked, at least a couple of times about, saying you're going to stay at a friend's house, but what you're really doing is something different as a youngster.
Yeah.
It's a ploy that, a lot of kids use and have used for a long, long time.
We have all used it. And I've been caught using it.
Yeah, but you think about Ashley's parents, right? They think she's staying with a friend. That friend's parents are home. She's good. She's good there.
Yeah.
And she gets up the next day and goes to school. They don't find out until sometime later in the day that obviously she didn't go to school and she's been found dead. It's just heartbreaking. I can't even imagine what that notification would be like or that feeling. True Crime All the Time Unsolved is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. The Portland Press-Herald reported on details of a police report that provides information about what happened that night, which differs somewhat from the Crime Watch Daily report. Ashley persuaded 19-year-old Edwin Hernandez to drive her to the Sanborn home, saying it was her aunt's house. Before she left Aaliyah's house, Ashley told her she wanted to go see Steven, saying, "When I get a buzz on, I get a crush on Steve." At first, no one answered when Ashley knocked, so she and Edwin Hernandez drove to a gas station, where she used a payphone to place a call. Household resident Christopher Coate said that Ashley called the house and asked to speak to Steve, but he didn't want to talk to her. Ashley called 2 more times, and Coate just let the phone ring. Ashley and Edwin returned to the house. Ashley, carrying her purse and a plastic bag of clothing, went inside. Moments later, Ashley hugged Edwin goodbye and he left. That was around midnight.
All right, so if that's how it went down, we just reduced 6 hours down to 4 hours now.
Yeah, which is important in an investigation, right? The timing matters a great deal. Muriel Sanborn told the police she heard someone enter the house around 12:25 a.m. A few minutes later, Daniel came to her room to ask if Ashley could spend the night. Muriel agreed. Ashley came upstairs from the basement and told Muriel that her parents had kicked her out for the night and she needed a place to stay. Muriel gave Ashley some bedding and saw Ashley go into the basement to sleep on the couch in the family rec room outside of Dan and Steve's separate bedrooms in the basement. So pretty nice of her, of Muriel, right, to let this girl stay. Now, she's been given false information.
She has.
But acting on that information, she doesn't want to kick this girl out. I don't know what my wife would do in that situation. First of all, she would be furious if she was woken up at 12:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that would not go over well. But if it's one of your daughter's friends, you're probably going to say, okay, I'd rather you stay here than wander on the street. So
yeah,
go ahead and bed down here tonight and we'll figure it out in the morning.
Yeah, I definitely get it. Muriel woke up at 6:45 a.m. to wake Daniel up for school. Ashley wasn't there, and Daniel said she must have left during the night. Muriel then left for work. Daniel told the police he went to a house party at Aaliyah Page's house between 6 and 11 p.m. He drove a friend to Bidford and went home. He went to bed and was awakened by Ashley knocking at the back door of the house around 12:30 a.m. Ashley prepared to sleep on the couch, but complained it was too hot and went upstairs to sleep on another couch. That was the last time he saw her. Now, at first, Daniel claimed he went to school on February 10th, spoke to some people there, and then returned home around noon. However, according to the police report, after repeatedly being confronted with contradictory information from Thornton Academy, indicating that he hadn't attended school that day, Dan eventually recanted the statement, admitted that he had lied, and stated he did not go to school or work.
Well, why lie?
Well, either you think you're going to get in trouble for something that you didn't do, or you did do something and you're trying to stay out of trouble for that.
Exactly.
Dan admitted that he slept in and skipped his afternoon shift at the local Pizza Hut, then spent his afternoon with friends on the beach. Ashley's body was found about 6 miles away from the Sanborn house.
I mean, 6 miles is a pretty healthy hike.
Well, you're assuming if someone's on foot.
Yeah.
But driving 6 miles in a car wouldn't take that long.
5-7 minutes.
I think what's interesting, at the point where we are now, is that you have this, young 15-year-old girl sleeping in a house with a bunch of boys, right? In the house, not sleeping with the boys, but in the vicinity. And then she winds up dead on a road.
But where was she killed? And why was she killed?
And who killed her?
Yeah.
And why was she dumped out on the road? According to the report published by the Press Herald, during the postmortem exam, the medical examiner found small pieces of brown vegetation in Ashley's hair and light gravel-type dirt on her pants. There was a small amount of blood in her nostrils. She was clothed, but wasn't wearing any of the jewelry she had on before she arrived at the Sanborn house. While Daniel was being interviewed at the police station, a state police detective was looking through the window of his car with a flashlight. The detective saw that the floorboards were covered with dry brown grass that appeared similar to the grass on Ashley's body. Police seized the car and obtained a search warrant. Inside, they found a gold ring, a black blouse, fingernail particles, a scarf, and hair, in addition to the grass.
Okay.
So now Daniel lying takes on a much more ominous tone, right? This stuff in his vehicle seems like he might have been involved in what happened to Ashley Ouellette.
Yeah, really suspicious.
A detective went to the Sanborn home to secure the residence before a search warrant could be issued. The detective saw what appeared to be a trail of blood droplets on the floor between the kitchen and the entrance to the living room doorway. Police searched the house on February 11th and collected carpet and upholstery samples, a purple cord, a bedspread, jewelry, a condom, a pillow with a stain on it, as well as tissue, hair, and fingernail samples from Daniel Sanborn. I don't think there's any doubt, Gibbs. Daniel Sanborn is in the crosshairs here.
I think he's in the hot seat for sure.
According to the statement submitted by investigators to justify the search warrants, Ashley appeared to have had sex sometime before she died. The Sanborn family was allowed to return to their house on February 12th, but Daniel's vehicle remained at the state police crime lab. A spokesman for the state police said the homeowners were cooperating with police. At first, police wouldn't say what was found in the home or the car. This information wasn't made public until February 18th. Also on February 12th, investigators interviewed more people and asked students at Ashley's school for information about her movements between 12:30 and 4 a.m. Students were informed the police were seeking information at a school assembly. One student came forward, but sources didn't report what they said. And I think that's the other thing here in this case, Gibbs. Depending on what version of events is accurate, it appears as though at least, certain parts of the night, Ashley was with some other people.
Yeah.
Who can account for, some of her movements. On February 13th, a young man at the Sanborn home, who was not named by news sources, described himself as one of Ashley's good friends and said they had done everything they could to help the police. The February 18th police report revealed that Ashley had been strangled to death. The police didn't name a suspect in the murder due to a lack of evidence. And the strangulation aspect, kind of jumped out at me right away because of the purple cord. Seizing that cord, it just kind of takes your mind directly into, well, they know she's been strangled.
Yeah.
And so they're looking for what was used to strangle her. During his interview, Stephen told the police he and Ashley had a brief sexual relationship a couple of years earlier, but were no longer involved with each other. Ashley's parents believe this may have contributed to some of her problems. Robert Ouellette told the Press Herald, even through counseling, we never found out if something could have triggered it when she went through her rough time about 2 years ago. We knew the Sanborn house was one of the places she went. We weren't sure what was going on, but we figured sexual activity, alcohol, and drugs were part of it too. In early March, state police divers searched the bottom of the Nonsuch River, but came up empty-handed. They were led to the site based on information they gathered during the investigation. Some of Ashley's clothing and jewelry were still unaccounted for per the Press Herald. Ashley was wearing jewelry and arrived at the Sanborn house with a bag of clothes. But when she was found, she had no jewelry or ID on her and only had the clothes she was wearing. So I think if you're an investigator, you want to know what happened to that jewelry, what happened to the clothes that were in the bag.
Well, if they can figure this out, perhaps they get to the bottom of who did this.
Yeah, it could help them out for sure. 3 months after Ashley was murdered, a young man who claimed to have knowledge about who killed her went missing. 21-year-old Angel Antonio Torres, who went by the nickname Tony, was born in New York City. His family moved to Maine when he was 6. In a place like New York City, which has lots of diversity, Angel's name didn't stand out. But in Maine, it was considered a girl's name. So he started going by Tony. Tony was described as funny, a ladies' man, an athlete, and someone who loved his family and loved to help others. Tony enjoyed soccer, basketball, music, and dancing. He did well in school, and he didn't get into any trouble. Tony's family said he wanted to own a sporting goods store one day.
A boy with a dream.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be cool to own a sporting goods store. Knives. You're going to have a lot of knives. Your choice of knives.
Oh, I would love that.
Fishing equipment, maybe.
Yeah.
Depends on what the store would carry, but, bikes, mountain bikes, cool stuff.
You'd be excited with all those balls, soccer balls, footballs,
basketballs. You sound like the guy from Forrest Gump. I know everything there is to know about shrimp. In the spring of 1999, Tony was a junior at Framingham State. He was majoring in business and psychology with a minor in Spanish. He and his girlfriend had recently decided to move into an apartment together. Tony occasionally came home to visit his parents and hang out with his old friends from high school. He came home for spring break in March 1999, a month after Ashley Ouellette was murdered. According to the Press Herald, a new segment about Ashley played on the TV, and Tony said, "Oh, I know who she is. I hung out with her, and I pretty much know who killed her." Okay, that is going to warrant further conversation.
It's going to get somebody's attention when you say that.
Yeah, people in the room are not just going to let that go, right? They're going to start asking questions. They're going to want to know how it is you know this, who was it? Give me all the details. Tony's father, Narciso Torres, told Crime Watch Daily. He didn't tell us who, but he said he knows who did it, and he said it in a way that he left no doubt. We were in the living room watching the news, and the story of Ashley Ouellette came up, and he immediately said, "I know who killed her. I knew the people who killed her." And I cautioned him, you're either going to go to the police with this information, or you're going to keep your mouth shut. But be careful who you share this with. At the time, I didn't know how much to believe that he actually knew, and a little part of me feared for him. Because witnesses can be silenced. I wish I could go back now and pick him up by his shirt and say, we're going to the police right now. But I didn't do that.
I think at a minimum, I would ask, okay, son, who did it?
Yeah, and maybe they did. I don't know. But he didn't say, right? I think what's evident is that you can hear the guilt in Tony's father.
Oh, yeah.
Feeling like he should have done something differently. And that's pretty natural, right? If I'd have only done this, or if I could change one thing, then maybe the bad thing wouldn't have happened.
And Tony would be here with us today.
Tony came back home in May for Mother's Day. He also introduced his girlfriend to his parents. This was the last time they saw their son in person. Tony called home on May 19th, 1999. To wish his parents a happy anniversary, he told his mother he'd call again in a couple of days. He and his girlfriend had just moved into their apartment and hadn't set up their phone yet. What Tony didn't say was that he was in Maine when he made this call. Tony never called his parents back. They started to become worried that weekend. They reached out to his girlfriend, who hadn't heard from him either. She took Tony to the bus station in Boston on May 19th. He told her he was going home to Maine. Tony's parents weren't bothered that he came to Maine without telling them because he was an adult. However, they were curious about the people he was hanging out with. Tony's father told the Press Herald Tony was naive. He didn't do enough to distinguish between good and bad people. He mingled with everyone. And we did say it, right? Everybody liked Tony. He got along with everyone. Being naive doesn't necessarily always mean that it's bad, but it can be bad to be naive, right?
It can, yeah.
Or it can be dangerous at the very least. No, not bad, but one of the people Tony hung out with was his childhood friend, Jason J. Carney, who was a friend of the Sanborn family. Jay said he and Tony spent a few days together, trying to sell drugs in Bidford, Saco, and Old Orchard Beach. Tony's parents weren't aware he was selling drugs at the time, but have come to accept it.
That's something you wouldn't want to hear about your son.
No, nobody wants to hear that about a relative, especially a son or daughter. And you can also understand if Tony was doing this, why he didn't tell his family he was coming home to Maine. It's not something that you really want to publicize, right? That you're selling drugs.
But it also could be a big part of maybe what happened to him.
Oh, absolutely. Around 2 a.m. on May 21st, 1999, Tony and Jay were partying at his ex-girlfriend's apartment in Bidford. They were supposed to meet some people who were unhappy about the quality of drugs they bought from them earlier in the day. Tony and Jay left together, but Jay returned to the apartment alone, disheveled and upset. Jay claimed he walked Tony to a nearby convenience store called the Whistle Stop. Per the Charlie Project, Tony said someone was going to take him home to Denmark or to North Conway, New Hampshire, about an hour and a half from his home. He claimed a man in a red truck was going to drive him, but Tony was never seen or heard from again. His parents told the Press Herald that Tony would not have showed up in the middle of the night without calling. Tony's family reported him missing on May 24th. After his girlfriend notified them he failed to show up for work. State police deemed Tony's disappearance suspicious. And I don't know how they couldn't, but, I want to go back to this story told by Jay Carney. We have no idea whether or not, the information is accurate. We only know that it's his story, but that someone in a red truck was going to drive Tony closer to his home. Not all the way, but close.
Yeah.
An hour away, an hour and a half away. Okay. Who's this guy in the red truck? Was there really a guy in the red truck?
That's the other thing. Did it even exist?
According to the Charlie Project, two of the last people known to have seen Tony were Stephen and Daniel Sanborn, who were also the last people to see Ashley Ouellette. And I think this is where the tie-in, obviously occurs. Tony is talking to people about how he knows what happened to Ashley, who was responsible for her death, and then he comes back home and disappears. The natural inclination, Gibbs, is to think that, well, it was related to his knowledge of what happened to Ashley.
That's what anybody, I mean, it's just reasonable to think that.
Doesn't make it true, but it's a very plausible connection to make. And then you have, the Sanborns, right? You have Stephen and Daniel, two of the last people known to have seen Tony, but also two of the last people known to have seen Ashley.
Makes you wonder.
Well, I don't think it's ever good on your resume to list that you were one of the last people to see multiple individuals before they either disappeared or died.
Yeah. Not the kind of talking points you want to have.
Additionally, Crime Watch Daily reported that Jay Carney reportedly gave Ashley a ride to the Sanborn house the night she was killed. However, the police report cited earlier states that another individual gave Ashley a ride. And I think we talked about him, right? Edwin Hernandez, I believe was his name.
Right.
But if it really was Jay, okay, so now you have the Stephen and Daniel connection, but you also have the Jay connection. By late 1999, there had still not been an arrest in the Ashley Ouellette case. Her father, Bob, told the Press Herald, "We still feel a few more people know a few more things. I think some of these kids are afraid to say something." And I feel like that's true in many of these cases. There are multiple people probably that know what happened because they were either directly involved, indirectly involved, or just heard it through the grapevine. But do you want to be the person who comes forward? First of all, you might be telling on your friends.
Right.
And then second of all, you might be putting yourself in harm's way. Now, there's no question it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do. But look, you got one person dead, another person missing. How do you feel about what may happen to you? Not good.
What's a factor that someone has to consider?
Yeah.
Now, if you're just looking at what is right, morally, and for the family and for the victims, then obviously it's to come forward. But that's not the only factor that people consider. State Police Sergeant Matthew Stewart said, "We believe there are people who have direct knowledge, solid knowledge about what happened to Ashley. We need people to come forward." He added that they were not at a point where they could reach standards of probable cause for an arrest. And that makes me think, Gibbs, that they have an idea, or at least they have someone or multiple people that they believe were involved, but they don't have enough to act on it. Years later, police confirmed that some of the people they interviewed in connection with Ashley's case were also interviewed about Tony's disappearance. Both cases were hindered by uncooperative witnesses and eventually went cold.
Uncooperative witnesses. People that don't want to say anything because they're worried that they could get themselves in trouble.
Yeah, either legally
Yeah.
by implicating themselves in some way, or in trouble with people who may be killers and they don't want to put themselves up next on the list.
So either way, they're saying it's best for me just to keep my mouth quiet.
But I think it's one of the really tough hurdles, right? With law enforcement, when you have a case like this, where you need that break and you can't get it because no one's willing to talk. Well, that makes it pretty tough. Tony Torres was declared legally dead in 2004. His family believes there is a link between Ashley's murder and Tony's disappearance. One theory is that Tony was murdered because of his knowledge about the killer, but this is unverified. And that was one of my first thoughts. Obviously, it's pretty hard to verify until you catch the person who did it.
That's true.
And they confess. Another theory is that Tony's disappearance was drug related. Investigators suspect Jay Carney was involved and may not have been truthful about the drug deal. Jay Carney moved to Rhode Island and died of a suspected drug overdose in 2015. He was 36 years old. So, you have a couple of theories. I mean, anytime you're in the drug game, that's a dangerous business.
It is.
But that's not what I'm gravitating towards here in this case. Is it possible that Tony's disappearance and presumed death is related to drugs, yeah, it's absolutely possible. But my hunch is telling me that it has something to do with Ashley's murder.
And having knowledge of who committed it.
Yeah. A police lieutenant told the Press Herald in 2019, "We think that Jason Carney had more information than what he chose to provide. And yes, that is frustrating." And I think, police in these types of investigations, they have to be frustrated continuously. It's one thing to not have any idea, about what happened, who was involved. It's another thing to have a really good idea of what happened and who was involved, but not be able to find someone to come forward and corroborate it. That has to be equally, if not more, frustrating.
Yeah, beyond frustrating.
What is beyond frustrating? I would argue maddening.
Maddening?
Yeah, how about that?
I like it.
The murder of Ashley Ouellette and the disappearance of Tony Torres are open and ongoing investigations. In February of this year, authorities put out another plea to help find Ashley's killer. Authorities have interviewed hundreds of people and searched the homes of Ashley's acquaintances, but have never made any arrests. Daniel and Stephen Sanborn and their parents have been questioned several times, but have never been charged in connection with her case. Despite Ashley's parents' suspicions, Daniel Sanborn denies any involvement in her murder. Crime Watch Daily confirmed that Daniel has been convicted of assault of a police officer, and he spent 3 years in prison. He was also charged with heroin possession with intent to distribute. So he's got a record, but does that mean he's Ashley's killer? No.
No, you can't say that.
You can't make that leap. There is currently a $20,000 reward for information in Tony's case. Tony's family also worked with the community to set up a scholarship in his name because he loved to help others. Since 2000 and 2006, respectively, $500 has been given to a graduating senior from Bonnie Eagle High School and Freiburg Academy. Tony's parents, Ramona and Narciso Torres, told the outlet WGME in 2022, "We know someone saw or knows someone that knows what happened to our son. We know someone murdered him. It's been a very long time, and we're asking you to not have to live with the guilt of knowing such a crime. You might even have been as young as 21. Please put yourself in our shoes and imagine the pain this has caused us and our community." A year later, Ramona told WGME, "I beg you as Angel's mother to help us ease the pain. I think of him every second of every day. We love him and would like to bring his body home to his Angel Memorial Garden, where he played as a little boy. Angel will always live forever young in our hearts. We miss him and love him dearly. Please, please come forward and share what you know."
She just wants him home, man.
Yeah, and I think that's a sentiment shared by, a lot of the families of missing loved ones. Would they love to have their family member home? Absolutely. But as the years go by, the likelihood of that becomes less and less.
Yeah.
It has to. But not knowing where they are, not being able to bury them, that's got to be, tough as well. At the time of his disappearance, Tony was 5'8" and about 150 to 160 pounds. He is described as a Hispanic male with brown hair and brown eyes. He was wearing a large gold Gucci chain necklace with a large gold crucifix and serpent pendant. If you have any information about either case, you can contact the Maine State Police Major Crimes Unit South at 207-624-7976. You can also use the Leave a Tip form on the Maine State Police website. So, Gibbs, as we wrap this one up, it's a strange case in that we have multiple victims who either died or disappeared some, time apart from each other, with the one saying that he had knowledge of what happened and actually who did it to the other victim.
I mean, it sounds like because he was involved with the drug business and Jay Carney and the brothers, it seems like that it would make sense to me that somehow it's tied to them. And that's how he knows that information, you know, and maybe he wasn't murdered because he knew that. Maybe he was taken out, you know, because of some drug related thing. Or he was taken out because he did know that information and they wanted to make sure that it didn't come back around to them. That's one theory, but I think it's a pretty good theory.
I think it is too. And it's where I'm leaning as well. Now, obviously, you can't say that these people were involved because we don't know that. True. They've not been charged.
Right.
I guess my thought is, you know, if her last known whereabouts are at this house, I mean, what are the chances that someone outside the house had something to do with her murder? Now, could she have left the house on her own at some point during the early morning hours and, you know, run into a killer? Possible. To me, more likely that there is someone inside that house that, or who was inside the house at the time, who knows what happened to her.
I mean, she wanted to be in that house because of Steve.
Yeah.
You know, not the other brother, but because of Steve. But Steve didn't want anything to do with her.
Which was interesting.
Yeah. So did the one brother get frustrated because she didn't want anything to do with him? Or was it the other brother, Steve, that got frustrated because, like, why are you here bugging me? Why are you in my house? I don't want you here.
And where does Jay play in if he does it all? You know, my thought is they're not all alive, but some of them are still alive. You know, could it be that there's a rift and, you know, somebody turns on somebody? That could happen. Somebody gets pinched for a drug deal and they're facing serious time and they offer up this chip to try to either get out from under it or at least lessen their sentence. That's always possible.
It's possible.
But I guess this is one that we'll just have to, you know, keep an eye on, see what breaks in the future. But that's it for our episode on Ashley Ouellette and Tony Torres. We got a voicemail, Gibbs. You want to check that out?
Let's hear it.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Maria. I actually just wanted to call to have something on record. I let my abusive ex a while back, and he somehow found my number, and he wants me to meet him so I can get my stuff, but he wants me to meet him alone, and I'm really, really scared, so I'm not sure if I'm going to do it. I don't think I will. But I'm not sure, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm more leaning not to go because he still scares me, even though we haven't been together in years. But I just wanted this on record, or if something happens, if you guys hear Maria Johnson, something happened, just please make sure this gets to the right people. Thank you. Bye.
All right. I do agree that it can be a scary situation. I don't like to give advice, but I will in this case. I say take multiple people.
Absolutely.
At least have multiple people with you in the car or whatever. Don't take any chances.
Do not. Keep your head on a swivel.
Exactly. But appreciate the voicemail, and I hope everything works out for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
CBS hits are streaming free on Pluto TV.
I'm coming in hot.
For this month only, stream full episodes of Matlock.
I'm a lawyer, like the old TV show.
Fire Country, Elsbeth.
I do love a mystery.
NCIS Origins, Watson, and Ghosts.
What the hell?
This is the most amazing sight I've never seen.
All for free. the CBS shows you love this month only on Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.